Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing, the earth-friendly publisher with books for both adults and children in a wide variety of genres, available in paperback and hardcover, as ebooks, and with some audiobooks as well. In the Spotlight is a wide-ranging weekly interview show with authors, entrepreneurs, professionals, and other experts. Your host is Cynthia McGregor. Opinions and views expressed by the guests or hosts on this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions and views of the creator, Crimson Cloak Radio, the network, the hosts, or sponsors. And now, here's Cynthia.
Thank you, Carly McCracken, and welcome everyone to another edition of In the Spotlight. My first guest this week is Paul Atreides, former theater critic and columnist with the Las Vegas Review-Journal, who now writes for EatMoreArtVegas.com, has contributed to Desert Companion, an NPR PBS publication, and Southern Writers Magazine. His fiction spans genre. Short stories and essays have appeared in anthologies such as Patchwork Path, Writer's Block, Vegas Strong, a charity anthology, and The Grief Dialogues. 3 novels in his World of Deadhead series of paranormal humor have been published, earning Reader's Choice 5-star reviews and Book of the Week. While each book may stand alone, the overarching subplot is about domestic violence. His plays Fallacies, and that's a pun, it's spelled Phallusies, Fallacies and Fusion, have been produced around the country. He served as coordinator for the Las Vegas Writers Conference and publicity marketing chair, and most recently, president of Henderson Writers Group. He also served on the advisory board of the UNLV College of Fine Arts. You can learn more by visiting his website, Paul-Atreides, that's A, T like in Tom, R like in Robert, E like in Edward, I like in ice cream, D like in dog, E like in Edward, S like in snake, .com, or following him on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. Now, Paul, you write for the stage as well as novels and short stories. In fact, you wrote an article for the September issue of Southern Writers Magazine on playwriting. How did that crossover come about, and how does playwriting inform your fiction?
I had done a couple of blog posts for Southern Writers Magazine, and in early August they contacted me because they knew I had done some playwriting and asked if I would do an article for the magazine, and of course I was more than happy to do it. I think that writing for the stage really helps me in my fiction writing, mainly with my dialogue. I think a lot of people, proponents of writing, will say your dialogue needs to do the same thing that any descriptive does, that any action tag does, and that means it needs to move the story arc forward or inform something about the character. And when you write for the stage, all you have is dialogue to move your story forward. So I think it really helps me.
Paul, it's said that writers need to be prolific readers. Who are your favorite authors, dead and or alive?
Oh, dead, I would have to say J.R.R. Tolkien. His Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and the actual prequel to them both was the Silmarillion. I think he's just he was just brilliant in his descriptions. And it's amazing to me that in The Hobbit, he starts out in past tense, jumps to present tense, and then returns to past tense. And I just love that about him.
You don't find that distracting? You don't find that annoying?
Oh, no. He managed to separate it quite lovely. I think it was like the second or third paragraph, he jumps to present tense and second person to boot by asking the question, so you want to know what a hobbit is? And then he goes on to describe what a hobbit looks like and how they live, and then jumps back into past tense to finish the story.
And who's your favorite living author?
I would have to say at this point it's Stephen King. If he writes something, oh my gosh, I have to buy it. I have to read it.
Is there any book you've read multiple times, or are there a lot of books you've read multiple times?
Oh, so many that I've read multiple times. I know I've read The Lord of the Rings multiple times. Oh gosh, I think I've read, I know I've read some Charlaine Harris multiple times. I enjoy her writing as well.
What was the last book you read, the most recent?
Stephen King's Institution, The Institution. Oh, what a novel.
Now, are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, good heavens. I have to be a pantser. I've tried to be a plotter, and I just can't do it. When I start a novel, I know where it starts, and I know where it's going to finish, but I just don't know the journey the characters are going to take in between.
So you pants it from there. You
Yes.
plot the beginning and the end, and you pants the middle.
Correct.
Now, using another writer's term, do you vomit on the page, or do you edit as you write?
I've tried to vomit on the page, and I can't seem to do that either. which I know sounds like quite a conundrum from do you plot? Because I don't plot. And vomiting on the page is just sitting down at the keyboard and writing whatever comes into your head and getting the story out. And I just can't do that. I have to, if I see something wrong on my screen on the page, I have to back up and correct it. Most times I will write a full chapter, and then I'll print it out and take it and proofread it and edit it and make changes to it.
Now, Paul, you have 3 published novels. Tell us about them.
It's a series, sort of. All 3 novels have the same characters in them. The first one is Marvin's World of Deadheads, where I set up the world of the ghosts. And it's been described by Publishers Quarterly, PW Quarterly, as a mashup between the film Ghost and the film The Hangover. And it kind of goes on from there. The guys get into all kinds of trouble and cause all kinds of trouble, while the women are trying to do good things by helping victims of domestic violence find shelter.
Do you have a particular interest in domestic violence? Is this a cause of yours?
It seems to be, yes. Where that came from, I'm not exactly sure. But I know I had my first wife's in-laws. Oh my goodness, she was quite abusive, not physically, but verbally and mentally she was very abusive. And I think that has just stuck with me.
Your mother-in-law, if this is you're talking about, yes?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Yes, the first one.
Yeah. By how many times have you been married?
I'm on my second one now, approaching 34 years.
Ah, good. That's a good track record to have.
Yeah.
Paul, some writers have more than one project going on at a time. Are you currently working on more than one project? And if so, what are they?
Oh, yeah, I have like several things going. I have a stage play in progress right now, and I'm currently trying to get a grant from the state to do a workshop on that, gather my 3 actors that I need, and bring in a dramaturge from Southern California so we can spend a couple of days working on the play and trying to improve it. In fiction, I have a finished novel that started out actually as a monologue for fallacies and grew from there into a novella and then just blossomed and flowered into 95,000 word novel about domestic violence.
Now, Paul, I'm an inveterate punster, so of course I'm intrigued by the title Fallacies, spelled like phallus as in penis, and but then fallacies as in fallacies, but with the PHALLUS spelling of penis. So can you tell us what the title means and what it's about?
It is a series of short scenes and monologues done by men about everything from circumcision to prostate cancer, and addresses a lot of fallacies, F-A-L-L, about men's issues. It's mainly a comedy. Most of it is very funny. There are a few serious pieces in there. Of course, the one monologue that started me off on my latest novel about domestic violence.
Yeah.
And there is one monologue in there where a man meets a couple of women in a bar, and then they take him to a hotel, drug him, and rape him.
Oh, goodness. That one's not a comedy.
No, it's not. But I just thought it was important for people to understand that men can be abused, men can be victims of domestic violence, and men can be raped.
Paul, do you feel that with all the emphasis on the Me Too movement these days that men's issues are being overlooked?
I think they've generally been overlooked for decades. Actually, it's still very difficult sometimes for a man to go into court to defend himself and say, "Hey, wait a minute, judge. Wait a minute, prosecutor. I'm the victim here." Oftentimes, when police are called to the home, the man gets arrested whether he's the perpetrator or the victim.
Go ahead.
I think that part of the issue with the Me Too movement, shortly after Rose McGowan finally got that whole issue just out into consciousness, she came out shortly thereafter with a comment that men needed to shut up. This wasn't their ballywick. They had no reason to be joining in and saying, "Hey, you know what? Me too. I've been a victim of domestic violence. I've been a victim of sexual assault." And I think that had a little bit to do with it being pushed back down, maybe swept under the carpet a little bit more again.
Do you feel that men are more reluctant to report domestic violence against them because they don't want people to view them as the typical henpecked husband?
I do. I think that can be an issue with a lot of men that are victims. Here in Las Vegas last year, as I was doing revisions to my novel, there were 2 incidents here in the same week a man who had been abused by his wife repeatedly, finally got the nerve up to call the police, file a report, got a restraining order, and of course none of it did any good whatsoever. She came and attacked him again, got into the house, and he was so distraught over that he ended up, after she left the house, he got her out of the house. After she left, he killed himself because he just couldn't handle it anymore. He felt there was nobody in his court. And then a few days later, a woman chased a man down through the parking garage of McCarran International Airport, and she came so close to hitting him, the only way he was able to save himself was to jump over the guardrail, and he fell 30 feet. I don't believe he died, but he was in the hospital for a long, long time.
Goodness. Well, tell us more about your plays. You've had them produced locally or where?
Yes, I had one. The first one, Fallacies, was produced here locally with a theater company that I had worked with for over 30 years, and they brought me in to produce it. It went over very well, and then I started getting requests from around the country. The one I really like to talk about and tout is Nashville, Tennessee. And I said, oh my God, if it'll play in Nashville to sold out houses, it'll play anywhere. And then the other one is a short, probably under 10 minutes, called Fusion, and I wrote that as as a tribute to the 9/11 attack, and it's two people who were actual real people, though I don't use their full names in the play. One was a young woman who was pregnant and on the plane flying to San Diego to tell her fiance that she was pregnant.
Oh my God.
And the other was a gentleman in the tower who was a CEO and had just fired somebody. And so they come together after the crash in death as phantoms or ghosts, if you will, to ask what did they do wrong? What did they do right? Why them? And that got picked up by a woman in Seattle who has done I don't know what to call it, an anthology, I guess, for the stage, all about death and dying. And that is called The Grief Dialogues. And she has put my short play into that and has taken it all over the country. It's been in New York and Atlanta and Florida, and boy, it's just been everywhere.
Being a senior person yourself, if you write a play that's particularly suited for seniors, you might want to look into Art Age Senior Resource Theater. And they have a number of my plays in their catalog. It's not a big money deal, but it's gratifying to have your plays produced in other places than you have arranged for yourself.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, Art Age Senior Resource Theater. And when did you write your first book?
I wrote the first book in 2012 after I got cut in the economic downturn. I lost my job. I have a form of muscular dystrophy, and I really do believe that they cut me not just because of money, but because of age and my illness. And I said, well, what am I going to do to amuse myself? And so I started writing. And it just kind of blossomed from there.
I once got fired from a job that I believe let me go because of my Tourette syndrome.
Yeah, see, it's not good, but, how do you go back and prove any of that? You can't.
You can't. They said they fired me because my Spanish wasn't sufficiently good for the job.
Oh, jeez.
And I always felt that was not the real reason.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, what else would you like to tell us about yourself? Would you like to read a passage from one of your books?
Oh, I could if you would like.
Yes, please.
Let's see. Where is she? Book 2 of World of Deadheads is called Jenna's Gang of Deadheads. And she has died at the end of book 1. I'm not going to tell you how. But Marvin and Jenna decide that they're going to go through with their wedding, even though they're dead. And there's a youngish guy who likes to amuse himself and spend time to help the dead get clothing and stuff that they need. So he sits around in a department store, high-end department store, helping them find new clothes. And so he finds out about the wedding and decides that he has got to arrange the entire thing. He's got to make all the appropriate preparations. And the first thing that he plans on doing is getting Versace to design her wedding gown. So I have a short chapter here where he travels to Florida to try and convince Versace that he needs to come out of retirement, as it were.
We have about 3 minutes, so
okay.
Accordingly.
So he gets to the plantation, and he knocks on the door, and he yells out into the house, "Gianni, where are you? Come out wherever you are. Don't be ridiculous," a voice echoed through the room. "What do you want?" Davy turned full circle in search of the owner of the decidedly male voice. "Hello?" A hand popped over the back of the sofa and waved. As Davy made his way across the expanse, the man himself sat upright. Though Davy longed to flap his hands through the air and his inside screamed, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," he managed to contain himself. The only outward excitement he allowed was a huge white-toothed smile that exploded over his face, an outstretched hand in greeting, and the steps he took much too fast. "Mr. Versace, sir," he babbled, crossing the room. "I don't know. I feel like I should bow or something." True to his fashion sense, Versace was dressed for the climate in linen pants and shirt and sandals. Perhaps because of the manner in which he died, the ordinarily personable man had become wary of strangers. Gianni acknowledged the outstretched hand, but didn't offer his own. "You are?" "Oh, David." "David Krause, Davy." "Uh-huh, and?" Davy finally allowed his hand to drop down to his side, and the smile lessened. It always hurt his feelings when famous people acted as if it pained them to have to deal with peons, mere mortals of the world. As if. Yet he was determined to succeed in his quest. "I'd like you to design a dress," the great man chuckled. "In case you hadn't noticed, I've been involuntarily retired. Will you want to unretire for this? I promise." "I can't imagine." Versace gave a bored gesture toward a chair. "But go on." Davy sat and opened the large manila envelope he'd clutched for the past 6 hours. With an almost religious reverence, he slid a photo out and handed it over. "Can you imagine designing a wedding gown for her?" Davy had stolen the photo of Jenna while he knew nobody was home. Taken at a picnic of some sort, the picture didn't immediately impress. It took a moment. These are not the legs of a model. No, Versace tapped a fingernail to the print as he lectured. The hips and waist have good proportions. The breasts, a little large, but nice, shall we say? The neckline is good. His studied gaze moved up to the face, and he paused for a long moment. This signorina, this woman, He placed fingers to his mouth and tossed a kiss to the air. Is it her eyes, or perhaps her smile? But there's a look, an aura. Davy nodded. It's going to be a wedding for the ages. This will top anything you've ever seen or heard about. So, of course, I knew you had to be the one to do it. And this signorina, she would be apropos agio, comfortable with one such as I. She wouldn't be frightened. Oh, heavens no. David relaxed more into his usual sense of self and added, honey, she's as dead as we are.
Paul, thank you very much. Paul Atreides, my first guest this week. Thank you, Paul. Good luck with your writing. And we'll be right back with my next guest after this word from our sponsor. Crimson Cloak Publishing is the publisher of a wide variety of books, fiction, nonfiction, children, adults, you name it, everything except erotic romance. And this week featuring Claimed by Nikolai, Raiden Warriors, Book 1 by Dina Holm. When Abby Harris takes her faithful German Shepherd out for a hike in Oregon's beautiful mountains, getting abducted by aliens isn't even a blip on her radar. Her trusty can of bear spray and pocket knife aren't much help against the 7-foot monsters who swoop in out of nowhere to transport her to a ship in space. You can buy that at the Crimson Cloak Publishing site. And now let me see if I can get a hold of my second guest. I have to dismiss my first guest, and that's easier said than done. Here we go. And I don't know what happened. We're cursed this week. My first guest was late showing up, and my second guest isn't showing up at all, and he was there before. How odd. Let me try him again. but he's not answering. Well, let me tell you a little about him while we're waiting for him to show up. My guest, if he shows up, my guest is Wolf O'Rourke, special author in charge and transmedia storyteller. Wolf O'Rourke had delusions of protecting extraterrestrial life forms for MIB before he looked into a neuralizer without shades. Now he mines his implanted memories of centuries in cybersecurity, politics, and finance to create thrilling stories pitting quirky characters with high-tech gadgets against evil villains with vile weapons. He's coming on the show to talk about the following. Hot pink hair can't hide you from high-tech hitmen. A timid and lonely 16-year-old girl hides from bullying in her dream world of dashing master spy dolls, blue-haired Katy Perry Barbies, and pink Hello Kitty dresses, and she hacks her way across the net behind the avatar of a 6'4" hunk with the handle Cowabunga Dude. Cyberspiracy is the first thrilling adventure in Wolf's cyber series where a hacker girl sings and dances past discrimination, prejudice, and fear to save her country and herself. Well, that certainly sounds intriguing, but where the heck is Wolf? Let me ring him again. Well, now the signal is that he's offline altogether. Well, folks, I guess we'll wrap up this show early and try to get Wolf on the show with us at a later date. I don't know what else to say or do, but I can't reach the guest, and I don't want to do a 25-minute monologue. I think I definitely lose my audience then. So let me say bye to you all, and don't forget to pass a smile along. We'll be back at the usual time next week with hopefully a full roster of guests. Till then, this is Cynthia MacGregor, and I'll see y'all.
You have been listening to In the Spotlight with your host, Cynthia MacGregor, brought to you by Crimson Cloak Publishing. For a wide variety of books for both adults and children in print, ebook, and audio formats, join us every Tuesday at the same time as In the Spotlight brings you interesting guests to entertain and enlighten you. I'm Carly McGregor.